Guys, you're welcome to my channel once again on creating a RESTful web service and implementing the Spring security feature to protect your web application. As we all know, it's very important to protect your API, protect your server, and have some kind of restriction, authentication, and authorization on the resources you have on your API. So that is basically what I covered in this tutorial. In the past couple of videos, we discussed on how you can create your classes, just like what we have right here, where I discussed extensively on the Spring security. And these three basic classes, we created them, what they do and why you need them in your Spring security. Should in case you missed that part of the tutorial series, you can do well to check the previous videos, which link will be on the description below. And this is just the concluding part where we'll be testing every of our endpoints, our APIs, and how you can see that. And then, but before then, let me basically walk you in summary on what we implemented and what each of the beans, each of the classes, and each of the components we have up there, what they're actually meant for. So the first basic one which we have here is the Spring Web Config class, where we have our authentication provider and we pass in the method, and we there explicitly have to pass in the kind of provider we're using, which is the user details service provided by the Spring security framework for us. And then we configure our HTTP. This is where we add in some kind of permission on some routes. Those routes we want to allow the user to have access to without logging in or providing all their credentials. We have them and we add the permit all annotation. And for the user route, you must have the role of the user before you can permit that, and even that of the admin. You also need to have the role of the admin, which is what we have on our user entity class here on our database table. We have a role feature there where we'll have to pass in a role of user, a role of admin. Now, if when a user log in with a username and password, then based on their role, that is where we'll permit them to have access to some certain kind of role. And that is basically it for this tutorial. Depends on how you want to implement that into your project, then you can work around that and then know what kind of role you want to give. You can have multiple roles, you can have some extra functionality to process and work on the roles. And we also have aside our Spring Web configuration, which what we'll have here for our user detail service, we need to we need to have a class that will implement this interface, where we need to implement a method that will load a user by username, and that brought us to the Spring security user service class, where we have to work with where we override the load user by username, which is part of the method on this Spring framework interface. And there we need to pass in our user, check if the user exists from our database. If the user does not exist, this method also it returns a user details interface, which is also an interface that have some method that help us to check the user email, user password, and all of that gets us the user role. And if every one of this is valid, or if any one of this is correct, then that returns us the user. Now we also need to have a class that will implement this interface, which is what we have here in our custom user detail. And this is where we get the user password, we get the username, and also we got the user role. So currently in our user security service interface that is implementing the user details, if the user exists, if the user is there in our database, based on the email and the password the user is pushing to us, based on the username, the email rather, then we can go ahead and pass this user into get custom user detail class. So that is the class that is implementing the user detail service for us. So that's what we're using here, and then we need to pass in the current user, which is the user we got right here from our database and repository of find user by email, find by email. So that's basically it. And then we'll have a controller file where we create our routes, the home route, the registration route, and every one of that. And that is all the process and the steps you need to follow. So right now I will go ahead and start my Spring Boot project by clicking on the play button up there, and our project is building at the moment. So once it starts, we'll go test it on testing tool with Postman, or you can use Insomnia or any of the REST framework you have out there. So currently the app is started and we have no any error. Our app is currently running on the port we specified, which is port 4301, which you can see right there on my terminal, and which is, you can see it right here, that's the port we specified. And unlike before, when we started our app, we see a username password being generated automatically, but based on the configuration we have here in our configuration file, we disable all of that, and the user, we are using the user detail interface to load the user by email, and then the user will provide us his login credentials, his email and password, and that is what the user will currently need to log in to our web application at the moment. So right now I'll go to Postman and test every of this endpoint and see how this works. So for that, I need to add a new project right here on my Postman testing tool. Let me call this Spring Security, and then I'll have some couple of methods in there for the home route. So quickly let's add a method to test the home route, and that is on, let me call that home, and the endpoint is http this, which we'll have right here. And then once I try to go to that route, and we see this is not protected anymore, and we get the message of welcome to server. So even if we try to see that on the browser, we currently have a home route, and when I hit on the get to that endpoint, I see welcome to server, unlike before where the user has been forced to enter his email and his password. So that is for that. And now let's quickly try to register a user, and then, or before registering a user, let me try to go to the user route. This is protected at the moment, so this is the user route, home user route, and then the endpoint is /user. And once I save this and I try to go to that route, we get this 401 unauthorized response. Same thing with that of the admin. Let me duplicate this and try that for the admin. Let me call this home admin, and then the endpoint is /admin. And if I save that and try to go to that endpoint, we have unauthorized again popping up on our screen. So right now, let me try to register a user and an admin, and then we'll try to log in a user and an admin on the same on the specific route. So the endpoint is register, and then it's a post request. So let me make it a post there, and then I'll quickly fill in the form, raw JSON, and based on user entity right here, let me see what we have so I don't make typos there. We need email, full name, role, and password. So I'll have email, and then for the email I will use user@gm.com. that's my email. And then I need a full name, and then the full name I want to use Abike Adewale as the full name of the user. And then the password, I want to use the password to be 1234. This password will be encrypted anyway. And then the role, I want to make Abike, I want to give her the role of a user. So that's all I need for my database table right now. Let me try to save this user. And so we have this user currently saved with this email, user@gm.com. Now let me try to access this. Let me try to register another user once again of let me just call this Wale, and then let me use the email of admin, and then I'll give it the role of admin again. Let me register this user once at a time. Okay, now we'll have a user registered with the role of user, and we have another one registered with the role of admin. So let me try to access the user route with the user, and then also the email. So for that, we can pass that as a basic auth, right? And there we can have user, and then the user is at gm.com, and then the password is 1234. Is the same. Now if I try to go to my home user home route, and we currently provided the correct detail. This person, this is the email and this is the password, and we'll try now to this permits the user, this authorizes the user to access the user home route. Okay, now if I try to use admin, this person has the role of admin, and this current user should not be permitted, should not be authorized to access this user route. So once I try to do that, once I try to send that request, we get this forbidding, this user is not authorized to access this route. Now let's try for the admin as well, and I'll go to my authorization, basic auth. So the password is admin@gm.com and password is 1234. And once I try to send my request, you see welcome to admin route. And if I change the email to user, then we don't get authorized to access this route. So that is basically it, how you can implement the Spring security into your Spring Boot web application, how you can protect some route based on your project need and your requirement, how you can authorize some route, how you can make some route open, and how you can also customize your own security feature and architecture. Also, even once we go to our post browser, if you try to go to the user route, and then this asks you for your username, and for our case we're using user@gm.com, and then the password is 1234, and this password gets verified, and then you see our user is completely correct, authorized to access the user route based on the Spring security feature we apply. So that is basically it for this tutorial, and I want to thank you very much for sticking around. And if you have any question, you can do well to add it on the comment section, and please like the video, subscribe, share, and I will see you in the next video tutorial section. Thank you and bye for now.